So what this session is not about the theory of leadership. There is a lot of literature out there on the theories of leadership. This is really going to go into the how-to to solve problems that often as leaders, we can't even articulate. There are many problems we face and we often believe there isn't a solution and we can't even articulate the problem, which makes it even difficult to solve. So really moving to what we call leadership in practice. And this is going to be the first of many series, which is why we call it 1 out of N, N being some future number. So next week we'll have 2 out of N, 3 out of N. And we want to hear from this group the pressing things that you need help with, because nothing happening now is normal. And I think one of the biggest challenges you'll face for yourself as leaders, as individuals, in every organization, is that you're not able to find your new battle rhythm. And I use the word battle rhythm, it's from the military, but we all have, some people call it rituals. We don't have battle rhythms because there are too many things changing right now as variables. And if you go and jam a battle rhythm down the throat of your family, for yourself, or even your team or organization, it will fall apart because there's too many moving variables. So how to actually operate with the highest level of efficiency when that is happening itself. So I'm going to start off this session we prepared focusing a continuation of what Greg tried to cover last week of how to run effective meetings, but you'll see the effectiveness of meetings is much harder when you're doing it virtually over video camera.
So we call it BC, which is before COVID, versus AC. This is after COVID. Everything changes, right, in AC. How we ran before in BC was just a few weeks ago. You'll see it's 10x magnified. The challenges, especially virtually, there's social cues, there's so many different challenges. So we are going to show you what we're doing, even as a company, as we've adapted to AC, right, after COVID.
And a piece that you'll find is this: driving engagement is 10 times harder than it was when it was a physical meeting. Getting people to speak up will be 10 times harder. You will just give up in the pure technicality of trying to unmute, mute, and forget it. People won't speak up. So the entire meeting, in fact, the very way we're doing it, is going to run in a way that I call it the king or pastor meeting. So let me just try to whiteboard really quick some of what's happening, and then we're going to have you experience our actual staff meeting this Monday, minus the sensitive stuff we clearly don't want outsiders to see, and then we're going to run the thing, and then we'll kind of play it from there. So
I just remind people to put it in speaker view so you're maximized.
Yes.
Up in the right hand
So if you go in the upper right hand corner, there's a gallery view or a speaker view. If you do speaker view, as we speak, the screen will maximize so you can see us better. So first and foremost, I'm going to walk you through a simple diagram that illustrates how organizations are designed today and how that design is changing. And the best way to think of design is to think about 2 different animals. And the animals I want you to think about is an elephant versus a cheetah. And the best way to think of design is the same as the skeletal structure of the animal. And if you think about the skeletal structure of an elephant versus a cheetah, if you ever go to the museums and see those bones, they're built to do very different things. An elephant is designed to move slow and steady. It is one of the most powerful animals that exists on the planet. The cheetah, the skeletal structure, is designed to be fast and agile. And the best way to think about it, the elephant structure of running your business is a 20th century industrial age model. This worked really well in the 20th century. The cheetah is what is required in the 21st century, which is what they call the information age. And if you watch the design of how a company is built, it does different things. So when you think about meetings and you think about what happens for most of us spend 80 to 90% of our time in a lot of meetings. You take a look at your calendar, it's almost all meetings. How many people have an empty block of just free time, thinking time? And now with COVID and work from home, people are probably firing Zoom meetings and this meetings and touch base calls. There is so much happening. So if you're not in some type of electronic email, Slack, WhatsApp channel, you're gonna be in some type of meeting. And so why do so many of these things happen? And the result is if you go back and look in time and look in history, there are really 2 general categories, big categories of meetings that occurs. One is a meeting that is run very like a king. The other one is run like a pastor. I'll tell you what I mean by this. So this is the leadership up on top, right? The key decision makers of the company. Many of you probably sit in those positions. This is every other employee in the company. If you look at the organizational structure and how things function in most companies, you find very few people making the strategic decisions and the judgment calls for the company, and most people waiting for instruction, direction of what to do. This leader or this set of leaders runs the meetings like a king, which is an inspect what you expect. You think about how, the notion of if I inspect what I expect, right? So the status updates. You have a meeting with sometimes 20 people, 40, 50 people, and the king is sitting at the end of the table as everyone goes around giving their brief updates of what they've done. And they're in essence speaking to the king. The message is built for the king solely, and the king is almost the only person responding, minus maybe one handful of people who typically speak up just to show that they know what they're doing, or maybe they're trying to add value. And everyone knows who the same few 5 people are. So this is a king meeting. The pastor meeting is reverse, which sometimes, by the way, we toggle back and forth. The pastor meeting, my mom's a pastor of a church, it's run with like the sermon. I am trying to motivate and inspire my people by giving them this amazing, possibly vulnerable, tear-jerking, emotional sermon to motivate you in the hopes that you go through the rest of the week bringing incredible value to my organization, to my team, right? Giving it your discretionary effort, giving it your all. And that sermon, by the way, God forbid you were successful once, you have a mental model of do that every week. In fact, people will come up to you, wow, that was so motivating. And then if you actually look at what happened to their work, usually you'll see it's less effective than you think. But if you thought it was effective, well, you try it again the second week, you try it again the third week, it quickly fatigues and expires. And so even the rhythm of giving that pastoral-like sermon, if you do it typically more than 1 out of 4 times, you'll see the effectiveness of it disappear. So there's a lot of counterintuitive elements. Versus when you think of actually how the organization has to run here, the way I look at it is that you're going to build an organization where the information flow runs like this. Meaning this is the red arrow showing information flows up to the king, and the king does an inspection for you. The pastor is information flow, motivational talk going downstream. It's almost like a little mini TED talk. This is how information is flowing. And why we have so many meetings, why we have so much emails and Slack and everything is because people want to know, they want to know what is going on. The computers tell me a certain amount of information. However, my body of people, they're holding on to tremendous information that can help make the difference between winning and losing. They say in almost any case anywhere, factories, whether it's even Boeing to, even like companies right now building masks, right? I think the car companies are changing their factories to produce, the PPE, masks and other things doctors and hospital workers need. The ability to know how much you'll produce and if you'll hit the targets. If you can collectively poll the intelligence and the knowledge of this body of people, they can more accurately predict the exact sense of when production will hit and fail and whatnot. And so that is why, despite all the systems and computer and big data, as leaders, we're constantly looking to harness what's coming out of my people, what they know that I am not seeing. And that is why we have so many meetings and so much communication. Now, when you think about how companies are run, right? And I'm going to use the word community because we have some people here who are in schools. We have some people here on the session that are from nonprofits. So think of the word community to replace company or
Employees
Navy or Air Force, your enterprise, right? The community is run by, so in this case, it's run by the king or the pastor, or the community is run by the community. Now, when people hear that, it can sound very hippie. It can sound very kind of soft and, like we all kind of kumbaya, hold hands and run the community. I am not talking about intramural sports. I am not talking about something that's just low performance teams. I am talking about the people we have on this call as well, high performance elite sports. When you watch how communities run, the entire community is moving at such a fast speed, adjusting so quickly. The notion of seeing a cheetah in action at every level, the information is flowing. So with this, I'm going to take a quick pause and turn it over and let you experience our meeting from this past Monday with the exact agenda. So I'm going to turn it over towards.
And this should be this is an abbreviated version of our usually 45-minute to an hour max staff meeting on Monday. We're going to give you an abbreviated version. Should be about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to have you give feedback just like we do to all of our staff, so you can actually be part of the process, and then we'll do a Q&A.
Yeah, so actually in the meeting, we did a Q&A with our staff, but in this case, we'll do a Q&A with the group here. There's 36 of you in here. So the moderators will actively go and figure out who's raising hands, and we'll kind of play it by ear. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to DJ, David Jacobs, I'm calling him DJ. He actually runs our staff meetings. He's the moderator for it. So DJ, take it over.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm going to pull up our agenda for the Monday meeting so I can show you. Can everyone see my screen? Just nod your heads. Okay. So today, this is the agenda. So as Charlie mentioned, this is our full agenda that we ran for the Monday meeting this past week. We're going to show the orange highlight ones. So we're going to show you the weekly buzz by Dana. We'll followed by a COVID channel update from John Hilliard. We'll have an online academy from Tom. And then, as Charlie said, we'll give feedback then, and then we'll do the Q&A at the end. Again, each one of these are going to be run about 5 minutes. Each presenter is going to be holding a phone. They're going to time themselves to kind of keep the moving, because again, we found that if you go too long, people start spacing out. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dana to start.
Hey everyone, it's Dana live from Brooklyn with your buzz. So I just want to start with a little bit of context around what I'm practicing here. Oh, I see the, can we get the full screen version? Sorry. DJ, can we get the slides up? Okay, so I have a little bit of what I would like to be like as a public speaker and what I definitely do not want to be like. So for context, I gave a presentation last July that was probably rock bottom for me as a public speaker. I was very nervous. I came across apathetic and sarcastic about content that I actually really cared about. And it was because I was very nervous. So I've been practicing to be able to convey my enthusiasm. And one person I've identified as someone I aspire to, John Hilliard, you'll see him speak in a minute, sorry to gas you up, but he gave a presentation in particular about our search feature, and I just remember being very inspiring and motivating for Next Jumpers. Everyone got really pumped about the content, so that's kind of more what I'm striving towards. And I've also made one iteration. I did give this presentation on Monday. I was sitting in a chair, and I think that really sapped my energy, so I'm trialing a stand-up setup today. And with that, we'll get into buzz. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So last week on Friday, we trialed our first ever all US recognition, virtual recognition. So this is our virtual Coronitas. We gave Coronitas buzz and collected a lot of that in the Zoom chat. And then we also had a fun game of Guess the Baby. So we had collected everyone's baby photos beforehand and had a virtual game of Guess Who It Is. And Annie won first place, Monica got second, and Shay won third. And then we also had a bonus round. So tune in tomorrow if you're a Next Jumper for the second round of that. Next slide, please. So we also have some On My Mind buzz, actually a couple slides. So this one, we're just tracking emotion trends among Next Jumpers. Thank you for everyone for sending your On My Minds. We had 90%, 95% participation, which is awesome. Love to see it at 100. So we've also seen that the emotion trend, we've had a lot of negative emotions, probably no surprise, starting at week 10, obviously coronavirus and canceling Super Saturday, and our party was on a lot of people's minds. But actually the emotions have been trending more positively, which is cool to see. So please continue to share your emotions through the On My Mind app and your thoughts. And next slide, please. Another On My Mind was, so actually there is a new version of the app. This is actually a really big step towards standardizing our suite of apps. This gets on the level of the feedback app with our cloud auth and is a step towards making the app public. So please make sure you are updating the version that you are using. And last slide, please. We have a few life events. So we have one Next Jump anniversary. Chastity has been with us for 3 years. So if everyone can applaud by jazz hands. And we also have 2 Next Jump birthdays tomorrow. Romany and Daryl have their birthdays tomorrow. So happy birthday to them. And yeah, please leave me feedback in the app. Thank you.
Let's see. Hi, everyone. Hopefully, can you guys see my screen? It should be showing perks at work. Great. So I'm just going to start my timer here. So I'm going to give a quick overview of the COVID channel just for context. We started building this out about a week ago, right when we got back from Alaska, and sort of giving some update and walkthrough of the content that's in place there right now. So the primary way that people would get to the COVID channel right now is actually from our Perks at Work website. There's a link at the top right here and also some content down here under the trending topics. So if you go to that website, you'll be redirected to this URL care.perksatwork.com, which is the branding that we've taken for the COVID channel. And there's a lot of resources. And I think the primary intent here is that there's just a lot of information swirling around coronavirus, both in terms of the virus itself and the symptoms and whatnot, but then also just even, you know, everything related to it as it relates to news, you know, legislation that's going through and how it impacts you. So we've tried to be really thoughtful in curating different content that would matter, especially starting with Next Jumpers, but eventually going out to everybody. For context, this is a public website, so you could share it with friends and family, but the audience initially is more targeted toward Next Jumpers. So as you see up front, we have some content more targeted toward the general kind of virus information, prevention, how to clean, what, you know, resources on how to wash your hands, even some of the basic things like that. Additionally, we have a lot of just trusted news information. So we have some employees who've been tracking the coronavirus since the very beginning in China, and some of the resources that they use to sort of understand how things are progressing, what the status is, and we've just been compiling those resources, not only from a news, but like even data and analysis perspective, because we have a lot of engineers that are interested in it as well. Additionally, the areas at the bottom we started building out are becoming more relevant more recently, as in like now that everybody's working from home, how do you adjust? And there's a lot of resources that are useful. Just for example, even being able to get a Peloton free 90-day trial has been very helpful. My fiance has been using that as well. So there's a lot of resources that we've been compiling on that dimension, but then also even how to stay busy, how to keep your kids occupied, all these dynamics. That's going to be an important part, I think, of the coronavirus channel going forward, is adjusting to life, you know, I guess it would be AC after coronavirus. So some of the more recent things, we added some of the live tracking of just what's going on, what's the cases and what's happening, just to stay apprised of that. We've also included some of the content from our last academy, actually. So this is the video of the COVID from the head of Eielson Medical, Trevor. So we have the video of his content, but also all the slides that he presented here. It was very popular content, so we wanted to make sure that that was shareable. This element is actually this is a crowdsourced map of the coronavirus cases, and it's very helpful just to understand what's going on, especially in your own area, very rapidly. So I'll periodically go and check here. You know, I like to check where my mom lives and see, just to make sure that, you know, things aren't spiking there, and if it is, you know, making sure my mom is informed. But this is a very helpful and constantly updated resource as it relates to the locations of coronavirus. So there's more visuals just in terms of like what's going on within the world. And then at the bottom here, we have a lot of content that's, you know, from either trusted news sources like, you know, NIH, but also CDC as well in real time. So this is just a portal page for everyone to come to. So just rapidly, a couple more things I want to update just on the traffic side. Right now we're getting a few hundred hits a day. That's increasing as we add more placements to our sites. It's really in the trial mode internal right now. We haven't really promoted it that heavily. Going forward, right now the page is really organic. It's one page with a lot of stuff on it, and we're starting to build and shift into a more hierarchical site navigation that's a little bit more easy to navigate, and would also support a lot more content, especially as we start to build out content in this adjusting category around working from home, home fitness, you know, even consumer advocacy of like, how do I cancel my travel reservations and things like that. So looking forward, this is kind of what I presented on Monday. Some of this stuff got done. So we integrated the APIs in terms of live stat tracking. So that got done. We're still looking into crowdsourcing. You know, a lot of the crowdsourcing right now happens on Slack and email, but we'll be looking forward to integrating that directly into this channel. We wanted to have better tracking and analytics. So Google Analytics has been integrated. That gives us a sense of where people are clicking, what they're looking at, what they're interested in, and how long they spend on the site. And then overall, re-architecting the kind of information to be more hierarchical is on the roadmap as well. So would appreciate any reactions just in terms of the content, but then also, you know, the progress we're making as well. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Image. Yeah, can you maximize it? So the when we came in on Monday, I presented this to the company. The context is we ran our first online, you know, community online academy COA a week ago last week, and sharing with everyone how, you know, we got a lot of good feedback on it from a whole bunch of different dimensions, from next jumpers, from, you know, friends and family that came, from clients that came, from even the presenters and teachers themselves. And we set a goal over the weekend of, okay, that worked. Let's do it again, but how do we double it? And what do I mean by double it? We had about you know, 200 people kind of RSVP and attend last week. How do we move that to 400 to 600 this week? And how do we also make more content and deeper, better content? So for the instructors, especially those that did really well last week, we doubled the amount of classes that they had. So the boxing class did really well. For example, Mike, he had 2 spots last week. He has 4 spots, or 3 or 4 spots today. So that's basically the situation. We launched it. We want to do this every Tuesday. We want to have a special focus on, you know, helping people deal with the new reality of you're working from home, but you're working from home with kids and your spouse, and you have to deal with multiple dimensions hitting at once. And so how do we make that work really well? We spent Monday morning really working on the org chart. And so I shared this live. It's kind of real time, you know, more information to come, but wanted to just share where we're at and how we're attacking the problem. And at the top are kind of the 3 key elements, which are presenters, attendees, and moderators. So presenters are kind of the teachers teaching the classes. Attendees are kind of you all on this call. And then moderators are each class has someone that's helping facilitate, moderate, and make sure that the Zoom technology works. And if you get all 3 of those people showing up fully engaged, excited, you know, psyched to be there, if you have, you know, good presenter, good attendees, and good moderators, you're gonna have an awesome class. So how do we do that? So we put people in charge of each of those. So Jue and Daryl for the presenters, Eric for the attendees, so the, you know, RSVP process communications, and moderators, Laura and Beth, and they each have a team under them that's helping bring all that stuff together. There's a parallel effort in the UK, so for our London office, led by Rosie and Miranda. Then underneath there are other sort of special projects that really, how do we create some awesomeness and really grow this, you know, for this week and the coming weeks. The Train the Trainers program led by Laura and Coach Mackey. So he's an outside partner and one of the kind of partners of the Community Online Academy. They're coming up, and they came up with a program where they're training the teachers to be even better teachers. It's a little bit of a different dynamic to be, you know, teach and interact and get engagement over video. So they've been working with the presenters to kind of take best practices and loop it back and make everyone better week over week. The PAW Online Academy site, we launched that last week and then been updating it aggressively. The team was up, you know, pretty late last night, adding in an interactive scheduler. So that was one big piece for this week. Connecting it to the Perks at Work site and having a unified login is another big piece. And then ultimately creating a really great experience, especially for the teachers, so they can see their feedback and they can actually use what we've built as a platform in the same way like a driver would use Uber as a platform for scheduling and payments and, you know, feedback. We have the same type of platform where teachers can teachers, and whether you're teaching children or you're teaching kind of adults new skills, they can use our platform not only to join our community and our network, but actually use the platform to get outside business, because it's in parallel to what's happening to big companies. Who's really getting hurt right now are gig workers. And so these people that we're connected to, being able to use our resources as a way to kind of maintain their business virtually is important to us. Apps, we're continuing to build out our apps, feedback app in particular, but a bunch of technology.
Tom, I think that's enough. We want to kind of keep going because we're going to go over time a little bit.
I don't know if you timed yourself, Tom, but it felt more than 5, but I don't know.
32 seconds left.
Whoa.
Take it then.
Okay, then other things, video production. It's important when we have this video to be, or we have events like this, it's a lot of great video documentation, but if you don't do it deliberately, you kind of don't get the best content, so we have a team on that. And then data files, just the nitty gritty of making all this work, you have to have the data flowing right, so we have a team on that.
So actually, if you guys could put your Zoom back on the gallery view, if in the upper right, there's a thing with show multiple grids. DJ, can you stop sharing screen? Perfect. So we did a Q&A with our staff in a very unique way, which we don't have the ability to do here, but wanted to use this. Any questions, it can be in any of the topics from this group. Laura's looking to moderate. If you just raise your hand, they will unmute you. You can ask any question in any aspect. So there we go. We got Amy with a question.
Okay, Amy, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Or Laura will do it.
I'm good. I have a process question. So it was so great to get so much information so quickly. Are all questions, clarifying questions, expected to be addressed after the meeting or through the app?
Sorry, elaborate.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? You mean when we do Q&A in our own staff meeting?
Yeah, do the presentations go rapid like that, and do you save all clarifying Q&A to the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the goal of that is to keep the tempo, right? So you can be informing people, and people have very short time, engagement span. So every 5 minutes, you kind of need to be moving to the next topic, and then at the end, they can do a Q&A across everything.
And so maybe Amy, to add to that, what's interesting is the tricky part of online versus in person is it's very easy to disengage. Now, I know even like tools like Zoom have analytics that spy on you, and you can see as the moderator who's disengaging, but put all that spying stuff aside. It's just, engagement is harder online. And the worst part is when you do those, imagine if every person paused. Anybody have questions? Anybody? Yeah. Come on, someone must have a question. Someone raise your hand. And then someone like, oh, no, I can't hear you, Richie. You're muted. Can you unmute? Yeah. Like the disruption actually creates the disengagement. So, one of the things Megan was going to make clear too is the structure matters a lot, right, of the meeting.
Yeah. And when it goes to engagement, we talk about the start of a meeting and the end of a meeting is so important. Start and end of almost everything. Start of your day, end of your day. But for this, start of the meeting, end of the meeting. If you notice in the agenda, we started with buzz. And we've been doing this for over a decade, starting with the things that are kind of informational, but that hopefully is like a faster tempo. It's birthdays, anniversaries. Somebody just had a baby last week. Like quick, go through the things that are what we consider buzzworthy. You could call them highlights, we call them buzz, but it's a way to engage everybody right off the bat, because everybody sits down to the staff meeting and the first thing, it's like kind of like you can get into some of the monotony really quickly, as opposed to starting with something that engages everybody. Am I going to pay attention or not? And tempo matters a lot.
Right.
And then
like the way I look at it, it's like when you go to a restaurant, it's like the bread basket that comes out or the mousse-bouche, the appetizer. It has to get you to want to engage. And every one of us has a bar where like, do I really pay attention here or not? And so in the first 5 minutes of the meeting, if you don't hit it off right, you'll see you've lost them anyways.
And then at the end of the meeting, the key is to add in what we call a showcase. We didn't label it showcase here, but what Tom just showed on Online Academy is a showcase. It's something brand new we just innovated on last week. The COVID channel, which is what John Hilliard just presented. These are new innovations that occurred. So the goal is towards the end of the meeting, and we skip the meat in the middle, which is all of our financials and the proprietary information. And that's kind of the meat of the meeting. You can see our London office, each office, but it's still each office gets 5 minutes on the core business results. But at the end, you're seeing showcase, you're seeing innovation. And the key for that is to actually leave everybody on that upbeat. So you start kind of, and it's not to do shit sandwich, it's not that, but you're starting with buzz, you're getting to the meat, and then at the end, you're leaving everybody inspired with the innovation that's occurring, new things that are happening in the company. And there is an entire process. Look, pre-planning for these meetings is what makes the meeting actually effective. You can't just have everybody show up, and there is a pre-planning process, right?
Except, no, but the pre-planning, be careful, because a lot of people do meetings of the meetings.
Right.
Right? How many, in the military, they call them pre-briefs, right? The pre-brief before the brief. It's not that at all. It's an incredible system built where there's owners. DJ's a certain owner. Dana is part of a rotating team that does buzz. So everyone knows to email Team Buzz of everything that happened news-wise in the company. Typical buzz when the office is running here is much larger. It might be 20 or 30 slides, but in COVID, when it first happened, it was much less buzz. And so, but it's that owner's person to deliver that buzz of what happens in the company. And so there's structures in place that everyone starts to follow a certain rhythm.
Any other questions? Sorry.
Hand raise,
Yeah.
whoever has questions. So I'm scanning
We're just
through.
scanning.
There's
Oh,
there you
Steve
go.
has a question. Go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, see you're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Laura's gonna unmute you, or maybe, Laura, is it easier if we do it since we can see exactly? Actually, we can't. Laura did not give us the right.
There you go, Steve. Go ahead.
Steve, go ahead.
Could you elaborate on the pre-meeting a little bit more? One of the things that I see in our meetings are there's not a lot of each individual having something to bring to the table. It's more of an ad hoc type thing. So how do those pre-briefings work? How do you get the team to assign what they're doing?
So if I had to put like a very high scrutiny kind of, meaning we have no time, no resources thing, what Megan mentioned, the start and the end is what matters most. Most people will forget what's in the middle, even if it's company results. It's crazy. So, and the start is important because that changes your ability to engage your group, and are their brains turned on or off? And then whatever you do at the end is the message they end up leaving with. So this is where sometimes there will be that pastor-like motivational talk. Sometimes they'll be addressing the biggest eggshell that exists. Sometimes it'll be the coolest innovation that's occurred because I want people to go and model that behavior and do more innovation. Sometimes it could be sort of like addressing, COVID and what's happening, and here's the stats. But so you think about the beginning matters to engage people, the end matters the message they take away. And then this question Amy had asked before about so much information. Once people engage, it will blow your mind how much they can retain and how much of an opinion they have in everything, which is what will show up, and we'll do the feedback after this. You guys will be able to comment, and even this group, you're reading the meeting schedule of a company you're not part of. So I'm taking a calculated bet that even you will light up and you will see what everyone's thinking at once. And when you think of that, kind of the other stuff matters less than you think.
And Steve, though, obviously we've been iterating on this for a long time, but how we started, I mean, we're creating templates, right? We're not pre-meeting, we're not having pre-brief meetings to discuss the meeting. There are templates we have for buzz, right? And somebody is a team buzz, an email group called Team Buzz. If you have buzz for the week, and all you have to do is let people know the kinds of things you're looking for, at some point it will get into a rhythm. You'd have maybe sections like birthdays and anniversaries like we had, or, new baby announcements, but anything that's occurring in the week. But it starts, I think, a little bit broader, but you can create a template especially for buzz. Buzz is probably the easiest one to get started on. The financial results of your company is trickier, right? Because you have to start creating maybe 1-2 pages per business unit and how they show the metrics in their business, which is hard to do, but I'm sure every company has something to actually start the process of sharing that openly. We have a very open book policy. If you're an employee, you can see everything that we share, but we're not sharing everything in that meeting. We're as a senior leadership team figuring out what we're going to share in that meeting. And then for the showcase, there is a senior team reviewing and approving what gets included in the staff meeting. Just because you think you have something awesome.
However, but the way Megan's explained it, I'm telling you, Megan and I have no clue oftentimes what's showing up in the meeting till we show up to the meeting. That notion of most meetings are literally run with heavy inspection. And as the leader, you are very worried of the message and the information shared to the whole company. versus the entire company, the community is running the company, and there's a regular rhythm of who's in charge of what. And you'll see when the feedback portion comes, the crowd is now directing their intuitive thoughts against the presenter. So for instance, buzz tends to be more about public speaking skills. And so you'll see most of the feedback to Dana would be tied to her presentational and public speaking skills. Versus when it goes to John or even Tom, it would be around whether they think they're innovating correctly or badly. So the crowd is actually sharing that information. When it comes to business results, people will actually be more vocal about, I think you are doing a bad job. And sometimes the language is not as nice as that. It's much worse. Or like people will say, wow, like I'm really excited by that. And people are picking up the tiniest nuances. And then everyone can see what everyone said. So you'll experience that as well. Hey, Laura, can you give us moderation rights? Because I can't really mute her. All right, anybody else? Hand raised for question. Just gonna scan the thing. Anybody's hands up? Laura can see it, you can. Okay. Oh, go ahead, one more for Mario. All right.
What am I right? No, it's just validation. That was a great comment of, I just did a all client services meeting yesterday and made the exact mistake that you mentioned of you pausing every now and again, questions. Now everybody's disengaging because, oh, well, I don't have a question, so let me multitask, whatever that may be. Building upon the series of questions here, I've started to try to implement this buzz piece. And so we have the template. Where I think we're falling short is, well, maybe the engagement, the ownership of how do we bring this together? How is the community taking ownership that I'm going to come with something versus I think we've missed it a few times, or to Steve's point, it's kind of, well, let me pull something off the top of my head as buzz at the last minute.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that challenge?
Yeah. So what's fascinating, a lot of things you watch, it's almost like they've passed the first 2 inches. And so they're kind of running in a certain rhythm. And so you look at it and saying, that's not happening for me. Yeah. You forget things are actually different at the start. The seeding stage is kind of different. So for instance, in the beginning, you might want to pick a couple good presenters. What we do now in our company, we use buzz for those who want to practice public speaking, but that's not how we started. Right. We literally had buzz done by Greg, right, who's one of the most senior people, because he's a good presenter. Because you don't want a poor presenter up there starting buzz and everyone's disengaged, yeah, because of their presentation style. So in the beginning, we're much more careful on picking the right presenters, but don't make it yourself, because as the most senior person, your voice cannot be heard too much. It will fatigue. It will erode future value. When you speak, they need to listen, but they will tune out because they hear you in buzz every week. But usually between Megan and I, most people tune into Megan speaking because I speak all the time. So this is like literally what happened.
Just so you know, we ran our company for 10 years, the King model back here, and then another 10 years, no, I shouldn't say that. There's some, we flip-flopped from king to pastor. It was either you're being inspected or you're being inspired. It was crazy. And Charlie was, this is before I was the co-CEO. I mean, he was up there coming up with a speech, and the amount of stress and pressure to give that inspirational pastor speech, but then every week, but then also running King meetings. Anyways, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So then I think about the content you could seed into buzz. So everyone has life events. Yeah. Everyone has anniversaries. Everyone has new hires, right? So like if you actually put someone in charge of that, you could take someone in the HR department saying, I need you to feed that. And your job is to send it to, I'm just making it up. Say like, Pat is going to present buzz. Sorry, Pat, if I gave you a job. But so Pat's going to present buzz for right now. It might change, right? So you will upgrade him out of it. But you're going to send to him over email, right? By Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm assuming you guys are Eastern time. So that he can have time to prepare it so that Monday he can present. So one HR person you assign saying life events, anniversaries, all that stuff, new hire, and you come up with a format and template so that he's not scrambling with text, but it's literally a finished slide that goes to him in the template you want. And so he can just add it in, right? You can put someone in charge of sort of industry news. right? What's happening in your industry, competition, whatnot. And their job is to go scour that. And then in the template, they submit it to Pat. Then you can actually have someone in charge of, I don't know, other things happening in the company. Like, and you have to find the personalities that actually naturally source this stuff. We put John Hilliard, who presented on the COVID channel, because he naturally has a brainiac geekiness to this stuff. So when you give it to the right person, you'll see it works like almost for free. When you give it to the wrong person, it is like trying to grind gears upstream, like it's just like on a rusted bolt. Like you'll see when you give it to the right person, it just flows. And so when you set that organization and you start doing it, you'll see as it grows, then people will say, well, I have Buzz. Oh, well, we'll create an email group called Team Buzz. And now you can seamlessly replace Pat through the email group and no one will know. And so then the whole process gets going. Any other questions? All right. So we will go to the last section. So, oh, so Randazzo, you have one quick? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, so, all right, we talked about the two methods and the values of both. You know, in your opinion, like I think we're in the king or pasture method. I can't really tell which one all the time. We're kind of somewhere in the middle. Getting to shift from that method to the community method, I think, is where I put a lot of focus into my command. And so what would you say are like the top one or two things in your mind to kind of make that shift?
So actually, it's interesting. I was going to cover some of this. So before I answer the question directly, like the idea is you have to recognize what you have in terms of your team and your community versus what you need to get to. We have generally a body of doers, people who will follow the bidding of the king, of the person in charge. And if you think about doers, they are usually reactive, they're tactical, they're often waiting for your instruction. Or we said sometimes in some cases, like the decisions or the instructions from the Navy, the DOD, the government. And work from home, by the way, has magnified this in the worst way possible. Most people are more stressed, working longer hours. And when you look at what they actually accomplished at the end of the day, it showed up in our, what we call on my mind apps and metrics and whatnot, that people feel longer hours and unproductive. And this notion of doing versus thinking, and what you want is thinking, and why thinking is important is imagine if people turn on their brain. They're now thinking strategically on both a short and long-term basis. And it's what we call acting like owners. Most of us have a team or an army of renters. Renters want to know what's the rule, what do I have to be, what are the boundaries, what can I do and not do, how do I get cheaper rent, how do I get promoted, how do I get in your favor. But like there's a notion of kind of a myopic view that's very tactical in nature. An owner is different. You worry about short and long term. As parents, we are owners, right? If you are able to cultivate your team and your community to become a team or an army of owners, you end up increasing the capacity of your community, of your company. When you have multiple people acting like owners, problems disappear, problems get solved. There's a whole nother thing that occurs. So just to first recognize the shift you're trying to make. So the first thing starts with this investment in information. So if you're interested, we can run one of the sessions on a whole stream called informating. It's the notion of how do you informate the body of people as effectively and as quickly as possible. There's a session we wanted to run this week. Unfortunately, he wasn't good enough to present yet, but how do you write emails, not from the author standpoint, but from the receiver standpoint? How do you communicate in a way where it's not about presenting to the king, but how do you present in a way that's most engaging for the entire community? Buzz is built to do that. The showcases, when done right, are built to do that. You couldn't tell who they were presenting to. They were presenting to the audience, the whole community. And so it starts with information, because until I choose to engage, you're not going to get to the next step, which is I need their brains to turn on. And then from turning on, I need them to act, right? So there's a whole series of steps, but the very foundational thing is that I have to choose to go and cross that threshold from being a renter to an owner.
Maybe I'll answer a little bit more tactically, John, because I feel it is a really good question. I was just trying to think about like what has been the biggest challenge, I think, for us having moved from king pastor to community, running the community, is that you have to underwrite some risk. As in, if you're used to being the king or the pastor, you're in control. I feel there's like a lack of control when now, like for instance, Charlie and I will show up to our staff meeting and we're part of the audience. We're just part of the participation. We're there listening. In the beginning, it was very hard because you see somebody presenting something, you're thinking, that is just so awful. Stop right now. I mean, we're literally fidgeting. Charlie's scribbling to try to coming up with crutches.
Well, we don't stop them now, but we
don't
used
stop
to
them
stop
now,
them.
but we used to stop them. It's awful though, because at some point you have to have the patience to let them try, or else they'll never. And this is where, underwriting risk, you can't do that on some of the mission critical components, but there's an hour every week you can underwrite risk of letting people step up, giving them a chance to make mistakes, giving them a chance to try again, because otherwise they won't ever step up to be an owner. Because every time you cut them off, they're thinking, and the insecure ones will think, I never want to do that again. You have to give them a chance to go and just to run, and you have to be okay with it. It's not to lower your standards. It's just you have to be okay with certain areas, bite your tongue, have the patience to say, right now, not so good, but like later, they'll get there. And you need them to have the space to be able to get better later, or else you're still going to be king pastor and you'll just toggle back and forth and you'll never create the community where people are stepping up and rising up to take, but you have to create them, which is why buzz. God, if they do buzz terribly in one hand, who cares? Right? On the other hand, if the meeting's terrible and it kicked off badly, you might need to jump in. But as the leader, you're going to have to look for the places where you jump in versus you don't jump in.
So one tactical way to do it, I always say try 3 times, right? Try as hard as you can. And you might need someone like I may have Megan, who may kick you under the table, tap your hand, say you're starting to be a king or pastor,
don't do it.
right? So their job is to simply watch your behavior in the course of the meeting. 3 times, try to not be a king or pastor. 3 times. So if it's a weekly meetings, 3 times.
And the rhythm we have 1 out of every 4. So 1 week out of the month, that's ideally the rhythm we have where we will speak up in a staff meeting once every 4 weeks. Because when we were doing it too much, people get so used to it. At some point they get to the point where they're entitled. What's your inspirational speech? What's your update? You need the community to be responsible for that. And then when you do speak, they're listening.
The only part I would say, remember, every rule has an exception.
Yeah.
Look, these are very tough times. COVID the whole 9 yards.
COVID days, we've been speaking a lot more.
But I think even then you have to watch every week doing it. They tune you out. They will not hear. It's like the boy who cried wolf. When the actual wolf comes, they won't listen to you because they tuned in at the wrong times. All right. With this, DJ, can you take us to the next stage? And so I would kind of want this team to experience.
If you bring back the agenda.
Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you. I opened up the agenda so you could see it now. If you would go into the feedback app to leave feedback, 5 minutes, you could leave as many presenters as you would like. I actually added, if you see on the bottom here, number 7, I actually added the tag you could use here. So it's a work from home - effective meetings has been created in the app. So you could go in and give to Dana, to John, Tom, Charlie, Megan, Laura as a moderator, and as me as well as the person who's driving the slides. Feel free to leave us any feedback. Thank you. Oh, sorry, and one more thing, at the end, we'll pull up the leaderboard as we go along and you can see in real time how the feedback is being loaded into the leaderboard.
So as a group, if you can, just try to do this because I want you to see then what this whole group said about this meeting. Okay, so as you're giving feedback and just, usually they say with your fingers, you can do around 1 per person per minute. If you're really slow, that you can go to 2 minutes. And just put your intuitive feedback. Remember, nobody can see that you said it, but we can all see what everyone said. So in the app, one of the bottom tabs is activity. If you click activity, you can see everything. If not, DJ, can you pull up what's showing up in the leaderboard so I can show you how to do that too? So DJ is going to pull up his browser with the feedback that's actually from this group for this meeting. And so if you go to the bottom tab in your phone, an app that says meetings, it's right in the middle. And if you just swipe down so it refreshes the screen. DJ, are you doing what I'm asking or no? I can't
Yeah,
tell.
I'm pulling up, here's the feedback. Can you see this is the feedback from this meeting?
Make sure you share your screen,
No, it's,
DJ.
it's a
Oh, I'm sharing there, maybe the wrong screen.
Correct.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Can we see the leaderboard, DJ?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 32 pieces of feedback from this group here. Actually, this is so it's probably the wrong one came in. Michael Chad's in here, which someone tagged it wrong, but this is the actual feedback that's come in this meeting. DJ, can you scroll down on this or no? Or is this the whole group?
That's actually the whole.
Yeah. So it's live updating. So DJ, if you hit refresh, if someone puts more in, it should update.
Yeah.
Yep, there's 33 now, right? On your phones, you can see it by the meeting tag in the middle of the phone. And then when you go to meeting, now you can click into any one of them. So I think in the web version, the feature isn't there, but DJ, can you go back to the, oh, there's 34 now. So when you go view feedback, this is actually what you guys are saying right now. So, you know, yeah, Megan, so authentic and clear as usual. Thanks for making it specific and tactical. Keep going, John. Tom felt unusual prepared. Sorry, Tom. Now, if you disagree with Tom's, right, you can downvote it. So DJ, can you downvote it? Right? So as you're going through yourself, reviewing it, go ahead. Can you click or no?
Do it in here.
You can't do the web.
Do it here.
Oh, you can't web write it. Okay, so on your phone, any feedback you see, you can up or downvote it. You all get one vote and everything. And that's like the collective vote, right? Dana could have done better explaining context to the audience, right? Megan, love it when you speak. Right?
I like this.
Mine has an upvote.
Yeah, so DJ has an upvote. I think you could take more of an energetic tone, engage everyone at the start of the meeting, read agenda, get the tempo going, take charge. The flag on the right, if it really is inappropriate. And what you're seeing is everyone's feedback live. So this is now harnessing the collective power, right? Oh, so here, sorry, scroll back up for John. I like what he said. Really enjoy the personal touch when you mentioned the interactive map to locate where your mom lives. So someone like John can say, huh, that feature was at the bottom of the page. Maybe I want to move it up to the top because that seems to be what resonated most. So despite in his presentation, he presented it last at the very bottom. If that's what gets the most resounding feedback, he could choose to then engineer that differently and put it at the top of the page. Self-timing potion resonates, so forth. All right.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I think that was all, right? We're trying to stick within the time.
So you still have the feedback app. If you wanted, feel free to put more thoughts in there for us, especially Megan and I, because if there's certain topics that you want to, DJ, can you put it back or back in the gallery view? If you want more topics that are more pressing, you can give it to us via the feedback app. You can also email us directly. Most of you, I think, have our emails since I've been emailing you a little too much, and I apologize for that volume of emails. But as we will find a way to not do that since that is my actual email. And my inbox gets flooded because of that. So email us if you want directly. If not, use the app. Any topics that you're struggling with, can't articulate, let us know, and we will do our best to cover those. We have a wealth of stuff that we would love to go over that, you know, from running offsites to balancing work life to how to disengage. I mean, how to manage the volume of emails and to-dos and, you know, my calendar, how to argue. Conflict resolution is a big one, right? How to process critical feedback. How do I know who to listen to and not? I mean, there's a lot of different topics that we can go into depth. So we have quite a bit of accumulated knowledge over the years that I think is probably of more importance today than ever. So I hope you found value. I'm sorry I spoke too much, but thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.